The government has launched a youth dashboard to gather data and figures concerning young people with the intention of using it for policy formulation. So how useful will this dashboard be? Well, joining us to tell us more is DAB lawmaker Nixie Lam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. So what are your thoughts on the new youth dashboard?
Well, we've been waiting for the dashboard information for quite a while, so it's pretty nice that the government finally launched on the last date of last year. And it's quite informative. It's basically included all the aspects like the demographic characteristics, like marriage and fertility, which we've been talking about it quite a lot last year, and also like social participation and well-being. And I think what is quite important is previously a lot of the data were basically lost in those like departments or bureau, and it takes us quite a while, even politicians like us, it's pretty hard for us to dig out those information and try to question the government what is their policy around some of the directions and stuff. So this time this sort of information on hand could actually help us to basically question the government to see what they can do more. For instance, like I saw some data on the young electors. Or we have like over 20% in Shatin and Yunlong are young voters. So what are the policy or what are the community concerns that they have? Maybe the government can do more with the new district council like bodies to see what more sort of policies that they can work around there.
Now, from my understanding, the youth dashboard will be continually updated. So is it presented in the form of how is it presented? Is the data in the form of graphs? Is it in written form? How does it look?
Yeah, it's just an infographic thing, so it's much better than before. You know, what happened is like in the old days, we normally see a PDF of like all wording sort of like information. So this time they improved a lot with a lot of data, infographics and stuff, and also I think the data I asked about it, whether they're gonna update all the information like per year or per quarter or something like that. The answer is basically because the information are from different departments and different bureau, they don't intend to update it every year. But I think what I suggest is if we see some information that is quite important or they're trying to formulate some policy around some data, I think a more frequent sort of update is important because they told me some of the data might only been updated like every 4 years or stuff, depending on what normally those departments do. But since they already put those data in youth dashboard, I think a more frequent update is important. And I think on top of that, this is like some raw data, right? But if you can see something behind those data, more research should be done. Such as like ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, they break into like which nationality, their origin, and then whether they can speak Cantonese or not. That basically can help them on, well, maybe they can dig down in like which area they usually live in and which language they speak, and then they can support on the language barriers or some community barriers. We just had two appointed district councillor in two different district council. I think those sort of like policy can actually combine all together to see what we can do more. So not only the data on the surface, but dig in to research more on what we can provide.
Now let's talk about the definition of youth. What age group are we talking about here?
We're talking about 15 to 39.
But do you feel like 15 to 39 might be too wide an age group because people reaching 40 may have different concerns to those in their teens, for example?
Yeah, we before we have the blueprints, we do have that discussion. But it's quite important that we do within that bracket of 15 to 39, we break into younger groups and more mature groups. Leaning on the more mature group, I think what they are aiming to is like you see a data is quite important, as I just mentioned, marriage and fertility. Of course, a younger group wouldn't be too focused on getting married or having a baby when they're 16. But when you're approaching 30, then that is a problem. You can see the median for having the first baby in Hong Kong is 32.7. So the age is getting into that sort of red line of 35, having being a mature mother. So that sort of data, what we can do on top of that. I think having a blueprint is something that we can see visually from the data, and then we can think more and go deeply. What happened is on the first day of the dashboard launching, I actually sent out this data to a lot of the research centers that I know that they've been focusing on youth developments and stuff, and they're quite happy about it. And I think we need more people to know about this dashboard and know about sort of what sort of data they can actually harvest. And in the long run, maybe they can also not only on working with government departments or bureau, maybe they can also talk to some of the large institutions that they have more interesting data that they can also contribute into this dashboard. So the information could be more transparent.
Now, speaking of the breakdown of different topics, I mean, we've touched on marriage and fertility, but other things like education, well-being, and so on. What are some of the pressing issues that you want to address personally?
I think, of course, on housing, but I think all those six information are quite uniquely different and uniquely important. If you're looking at employment and entrepreneurship, we've been talking about it a lot, but what sort of space we actually provide? Like having a company in Hong Kong is very expensive, and you have to pay rent and you have to pay a very high sort of salary. What are the chances that it's basically really available for our youngsters? It's very different. So it's really worth us to study into the data and dig into some of the important points to see what we can help. And also on education, I think education is a very long run sort of things. You can't say, oh, we have this sort of ways of like education format, and then we shift it on the next day and then shift it back the next year, that sort of thing. So if we combine the data from the employment and entrepreneurship with the education and do some different research and talk to the youngsters, we can basically formula into say, well, what sort of topics such as like ESG, right? The employers, a lot of them, they're concerned on topics on ESG. We need experts on that. We need young experts on that as well. So what we can do and what we can provide, and we can ask the university to formulate relevant courses for them so we can feed back into the employment markets.
And just looking at the overall youth policy of the government, do you think it's getting the support that it needs from different sectors?
Sorry?
The overall youth policy of the government. What are your thoughts on the overall youth policy?
I think it's a starting point that we're starting to. We have the blueprint first, and now we have the dashboard, and later on this year we are coming up with a lot of other events and a lot of forum. What we're trying to do is just to kickstart everything that's been left out because of the pandemic and because of other reasons. I think and people's mind is actually changing. Since the border opens, a lot of people's mindsets different, and then they start going and then visiting into mainland and visiting into overseas, and the format of spending money, is different as well. So the consumer behavior is different. The business world is getting changed. So the youngster really needs to go and visit and then feed back to us. And so this sort of interaction's been going on pretty vividly in the recent year. So what I say is like later on we really need to do more research on how's they're feeling, what sort of like employment directions they want to go, how about the housing, because after we've been having a lot of young hostels these years, and how are they settling, whether they like it or not, that sort of thing. A lot of things is basically happening, but scattered around in different areas. So I'm basically looking forward, but maybe we can do some more research on next year to compare how they feel and how they think about some of the policy already be formulated.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us this morning. That was DAB lawmaker Nixie Lam.